Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Monica Saini from Department of Anthropology, University of Delhi. Today we are going to talk on the module Definition of Crime, its Theories and Treatment from Forensic Anthropology paper. After studying this module, you will be able to know the basis of crime, different aspects of crime and criminal behavior, different types of criminal behavior, theories of crime, and various programs and treatment and different strategy of crime. There can be no defined discussion of crime and criminals without the investigation of the meaning of the words. Crime, in strict sense, is an act which is forbidden by the law and authority and which is regarded as serious enough to warrant punished, issuing penalties for its execution. The punishment follows for violating the rules and norms of the law. In the year 1940, criminologists studied criminals and their correlation in social context. By the year 1960, they begin to understand the need to relate with the victims and their social context. The traditional view treated the motivation of the offender as an essential component to the understanding as to why some individuals commit crimes and others do not. The word crime is of origin vis crimion, which means charge or offense. Crime is a social fact. The concise Encyclopedia of Crime and Criminals has defined crime. A crime is an act or default which prejudices the interest of the community and is forbidden by law under pain of punishment. It is an offense against the state as contrasted with loot or a civil wrong, which is a violation of a right of an individual and which does not lead to punishment. Crime is any act of violating social norms or societal rules of behavior which are subjected to punishment by the law in proportion to the severity of the act. Such individual subjects are deemed to lose their social status, face social stigma by the society. This definition combines the consensus position of political power that the criminal law defines crime with the conflict perspective's emphasis on criminal power and control and the interactionist concept of labeling and stigma. Thus, crime as defined here is a political, social, and economic function of modern life. Crimes can be classified into a number of categories depending upon the severity of the criminal act. Crimes like killing or abduction, physical assault are included in the category of serious crimes by the society. Other crimes like trespassing or speeding are not considered serious. Another type of crime is felony crimes. A felony is considered under a serious crime which leads to imprisonment for life, and for a repeated offender, the term of imprisonment can exceed as well. For some states, a felony is referred to as any crime that is punishable for some approximate length of time in prison. A felony that leads to death sentence is considered as a capital crime. Some of the crimes considered as felonies include rape, murder, burglary, abduction, and theft. Another type of crime is misdemeanor crimes. A misdemeanor is said to be a criminal offense or crime for which some punishment is authorized, but it does not include 1 year in a local jail. Each state or federal government can penalize the offender depending upon value and needs set by the jurisdiction. There are variety of crimes that fall under the category of misdemeanors. Some of the crimes considered as misdemeanor include speeding, trespassing, vandalism, public intoxication, prostitution, and having false ID. A crime against the person, it is considered when it is executed by inflicting harm by a person, using force against a person. Some crimes, like killing or rape, are considered crimes against the person, whereas the crime against property is a crime that is committed by damaging or intruding on the property of the victim. Burglary and larceny are two crimes against property that are normally felonies. Criminal mischief, which involves the intentional destruction of property, goes from a misdemeanor to a felony based on the value of damage. Criminal trespass is usually classified as misdemeanor. Crime against public order are against the public and the society that inflict harm to the community by any sort of wrongdoing, and they are included under crimes against the public order. For example, disorderly conduct, public lewdness, and prostitution. Next class of crime is theft and fraud crimes. Theft and fraud crimes that may include illegally taking of victims' property, the mode of operation involved in the execution of a crime, and the value of the property stolen. A fraud crime is a crime in which deception is used to decide whether a theft or a fraud crime is a misdemeanor or a felony. Crime which involves deceit causing financial crash is termed as a fraud crime. The last category of crime is miscellaneous crime. Crimes other than the above three types, for example, quarrels, fights, kidnapping, or addiction to narcotics, comes under miscellaneous crime. Now we will study about the theories of crime. The first theory of crime is proposed by the Criminal School of Criminology. This theory, it is one of the earliest approaches to explaining the cause of crime. In classical theory, human behavior, including criminal behavior, is motivated by a hedonistic rationality, in which people weigh the potential pleasure of an action against the possible pain associated with it. Thus, they think well before proceeding for the criminal act and are aware of the following consequences. In 1764, criminologist Cesare Beccaria wrote an essay on crimes and punishments, which set forth classical criminological theory. Beccaria believed the basis of society as well as origin of punishments and the right to punish is the social contract, which is referred as an imaginary agreement to sacrifice the minimum amount of liberty to prevent anarchy and chaos. The only legitimate purpose of punishment is special deterrence and general deterrence. Special deterrence is the prevention of individuals from committing crimes again by punishing them, whereas general deterrence is the prevention of people in general or society at large from engaging in crimes by punishing specific individuals and making examples of them. Next theory is neoclassical theory, which is the modification of classical theory, in which it was considered that certain factors such as insanity might inhibit the exercise of free will. It introduced the concept of premeditation as a measure of degree of free will. Neoclassists take the subjective approach to criminal aspect of behavior and concentrated on the conditions which led individuals commit the crime. The second type of theory is positivist theory. This theory proposes that the individual who commits the crime are low in intelligence and social acceptance, and thus they can't morally comprehend their wrongful actions as compared to the individuals of average intelligence or who are socially accepted. According to this theory, criminals are born, not made, and this is an example of nature, not nurture. This theory is focused on biological and psychological factors to explain criminal behavior. The third type of theory is biological theory. Biological theory of crime accusation, that is, biological positivism, are based on the belief that criminals are physiologically different from non-criminals. Cause of crime is biological inferiority. The three major positivists who emphasized upon the physiological incapacity of an individual or the hereditary makeup of criminal demeanor were Lombroso, Ferri, and Garofalo. The theory of evolutionary atavism was produced by Lombroso, who was an Italian physician and professor of clinical psychiatry and criminal anthropology. He stated that criminals have a specific bone type. Certain physical anomalies such as asymmetric face, large ears, excessively long arms, flattened nose, retreating forehead, and ability to pain, eye defects, and other distinctive physical attributes forms the identifying feature of the criminal. He also stated that the stigmata are not the cause of crime. Instead, the symptoms of atavism, that is, reversion to a more primitive type or degeneracy. Hence, atavism and degeneracy are the basic underlying reasons for the crime. A person who has a criminal temperament can't withdraw himself from committing crime unless he dwells under perfect favorable situation. Criminals differ from non-criminals not only in physical attributes but also in the type of crime they commit. Next theory is psychological theory. There are many theories regarding psychological causes of crime, which includes intelligence and crime and psychoanalytical theories. Intelligence and crime says that the idea that crime is the product primarily of people of low intelligence has been popular occasionally in the United States, whereas the psychoanalytical theory of crime causation are associated with the work of Sigmund Freud, who believed that people who had unresolved deep-seated problems were psychopaths. Psychopaths are persons characterized by no sense of guilt, no subjective conscience, and no sense of right and wrong. Next theory is sociological theory. Most sociological theories of crime causation assume that a criminal behavior is determined by his or her social environment and reject the notion of the born animal. Studies found that neighborhoods that experienced high delinquency rates also experienced social disorganization. Social disorganization is a condition in which the usual controls over delinquents are largely absent. Delinquent behavior is often approved by parents and neighbors. There are many opportunities for delinquent behavior and there is little encouragement, training, or opportunity for legitimate employment. Next theory is social control theories. Hirsky argued that delinquency should be expected if a juvenile is not properly socialized by establishing a strong bond to society consisting of attachment to others, commitment to conventional line of action, involvement in conventional activities, and belief in the moral order and law. Labeling theory. The focus of labeling theory is the criminalization process rather than the positivist concern with the peculiarities of the criminal. Criminalization process is the way people and action are defined as criminal. Next theory is conflict theory. Conflict theory focuses on the conflict in society between rich and poor, management and labor, whites and minorities. And the last theory is radical theory. These theories argue that capitalism requires people to compete against each other in the pursuit of material wealth. The more universally wealth is distributed, the more likely people are to find persons weaker than themselves that they can take advantage of in their pursuit of wealth. According to Gendrew and Andrew, different attributes are associated with criminal behavior and recidivism. Recidivism is the person's relapse into criminal behavior, and these attributes include antisocial attitudes, values, and beliefs such as criminal thinking. The second attribute is pro-criminal associate and isolation from pro-social associates. Third attribute is particular temperament and behavioral characteristics. For example, egocentrism, which means regarding the self or the individual as the center of all things. The fourth attribute is weak problem solving and social skill. And the last attribute is the criminal history. Another attributes include negative family factors, for example, abuse, unstructured or undisciplined environment, criminality in the family, and substance abuse in the family, low level of vocational and educational skills, and substance abuse. So students, now I will talk about different principles and practices which are associated with effective intervention. The first principle is the risk principle. The risk principle states that the criminal temperament can be anticipated on the basis of certain peculiar factors for the offenders, just as criminal background which remains are fixed and remains unchanged. Other factors like substance abuse, antisocial behavior, and antisocial associate which are dynamic and changeable. After proper gauging and assessing the individuals, their likelihood of committing further crimes can be predicted with better accuracy as stated by the researchers and practitioners. High-risk offenders require intensive interventions to reduce recidivism, while low-risk offenders benefit most from low-intensity prevention or no interventions at all. Second principle is the criminogenic need principle. This principle states that the offenders tend to have many needs, out of which certain needs have a direct link to the crime. Criminogenic need possess dynamic risk factors or attribute of offenders that when changed influence the probability of recidivism. Non-criminogenic needs may also be dynamic and changeable, but they are not directly associated with new offense behavior. The third principle is the responsivity principle. This principle includes treating of the offenders using the treatment programs which are consistent with the ability and learning style of an offender. How effective the treatment is is as measured by recidivism. It is based upon the interaction between offender characteristics such as relative empathy, cognitive ability, maturity, etc. And it also includes service characteristics which include location, structure, skill, interest of the providers, etc. Characteristics such as the gender and ethnicity of an offender also influence responsivity to the treatment. Application of the risk principle, it helps in identifying who should receive treatment. The criminogenic need principle, it focuses on what should be treated, and the responsivity principle underscores the importance of how treatment should be delivered. The essential components of criminal justice mission include both criminal justice treatment and other appropriate treatment, and both are essential components of criminal justice mission for the proper management and treatment of offenders. Effective programmed practices for offender treatment and management are essential and desirable, but it may get confounding as a result of manifold factors. The social learning and behavioral intervention, it is a clear and direct instructional method, modeling and observation of individuals in the environment which are needed for offenders' change and resocialization. Behavior psychologists like Albert Bandura suggested how social learning can benefit in teaching and modeling socially accepted behavior. The elements that support the environment in which social learning can take place are structure and accountability. Whereas cognitive program, which is the key to social behavior. Problem behavior is almost always rooted in modes of thinking that promote and support that behavior. Permanent change in problem behavior demands change at a cognitive level, that is, change in the underlying belief, attitudes, and ways of thinking, authority control that increases resentment and antisocial attitudes, which is counter-reproductive. Punitive methods of controlling behavior all too often reinforce modes of thinking that were responsible for the initial antisocial behavior. Programs that incorporate relapse prevention strategies involves the following set of elements ranging from the development of an individualized plan and rehearsal of alternative pro-social responses that are individual specific to their behaviors or situations that are prone or increase the risk of re-offending for offender in question. It includes the development of self-monitoring skills and the skills to predict situation-based issue and training and teaching of significant others such as family, friends and employers to reinforce pro-social behavior and to recognize triggers and risk situations. Now we will study that how can the series of crime be prevented. Cognitive behavioral therapy reduces repetition of crimes in both juveniles and adults. The therapy suggests that people after receiving the therapy become self-aware and they stay conscious about their behaviors and state of mind and further nurturing them by making positive changes to them. It has been stated that experience has a lot of impact on a person's thought process and their behavior is triggered and often the result of these thoughts. Cognitive behavioral therapy has been found to be effective with juvenile and adult offenders, substance abusing and violent offenders, and probationers, prisoners, and parolees. It is effective in various criminal justice settings, both in institutions and in the community-based settings, and addresses a range of issues associated with criminal behavior. Mark Lipsey of Vanderbilt University examined the effectiveness of various approaches to intervention with young offenders. His review analyzed the result of 548 studies from 958 to 2002 that assessed intervention policies, practices, and programs. Lipsey grouped evaluation into 7 categories, that is, counseling, deterrence, discipline, multiple coordinated services, restorative programs, skill building, and surveillance. When he combined and compared the effect of these interventions, he found that those based on punishment and deterrence appear to increase criminal recidivism. On the other hand, therapeutic approaches based on counseling, skill building, and multiple services had the greatest impact in reducing further criminal behavior. So students, let us summarize what we have studied. The field of criminology systematically studies the causes of crime. The explanation for crime are not simple. We live in a complex society, and the causes of crime are as complex as the society itself. This module studies and attempts to explore the conditions leading to the criminal behavior. It also explores a wide variety of theories regarding crime. These theoretical explanations contribute to the understanding of the criminal behavior, classification of different types of crimes, aspect of criminal behavior, and it also provides an important framework for the treatment effort established to deal with the crime problem. Thank you.